Hi. Welcome to our college music panel. My name is Renee Shaw Netwell. I am a teacher of Shaw Strings, and today I'm joined with three alumni of the studio who spent at least some of their time with me before they went off to college. And I'm excited to hear about what programs are available, what being a college music student is now versus when I was there. And even every school, I think we'll probably start to hear some of the differences between the different schools and what your private lessons teachers like require of you and all of that fun stuff. It really can be very different depending on who your faculty are and what requirements are placed on you for your specific degree. So I think that would be great. I would love to kick off with some introductions, and hopefully, you guys feel really ready to do that. Why don't we start? We can do ladies first. Which lady would like to go first?
I'll go first.
All right, thank you.
Okay. My name's Emily. I play the violin. Um, I am a senior music performance major at Susquehanna University.
Okay. I'm Anna. I play viola and I'm sophomore music performance at James Madison University.
I'm Blake. I am a senior music therapy major, so I play just about any and everything under the sun. Um, and I forgot the other questions. That's okay.
What you play? So, what's I guess do you still consider
Oh,
primary?
yeah.
What year you're in? Maybe I think.
I'm a senior. Violin is one of the six instruments that I now play. But I wouldn't necessarily call it my primary anymore. I would call guitar my primary. So I play guitar, piano, voice, drums, mandolin, and violin.
Yeah, awesome. I thought that mandolin violin thing was like really easy.
Yes, yes, it was.
That's pretty great. Um, so that's like I love that we have like such a variety. Do any of you have like minors or anything like that that's still in music or like another concentration or
Um, I have a minor in Spanish English translation, but it's not music related.
and you had the double major, right, Emily?
I had a double major. I don't anymore.
Really? God.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's cool. That's good to know. Is it a short story as to why you switched to
Um, it's a pretty short story. The story was that I stopped liking science.
yeah, okay. Okay, very cool. Um
I might be getting a psychology minor. It just kind of depends on my schedule next semester. But yeah.
yeah, and that totally makes sense. I think music therapy I was not it was like it's still pretty new, I think,
Yeah.
but when I was in school it was we could see it off on the horizon kind of thing, but there weren't degrees for it. And when I was at Messiah, I had entered Messiah as a sophomore from all of my high school credits and things like that. So they were like, "So what are you going to do with all this free time?" And I was like, maybe minor in psychology. A lot of the minors were comparative and kind of like I could have double dipped still with like my education degree, the education side. But then when I transferred to Shepherd, they were less what's the word, compliant about applying other people's credits. So I ended up just kind of being like, it's fine. Music ed is fine. So very cool. As far as like what ensembles, we can start with the ensembles you're currently in. But I would also love like if there's any highlights from the time that you've been in school, if there's been any like particular form of music or like I don't know, just even outside experiences if you worked in pit orchestras or done chamber music and stuff like that. I would love to hear what your experience has been. And we can go backwards this time.
Okay. Um, so For me, because of my major at Shenandoah, you only have to do 2 years of ensembles and private lessons for your main instrument, and then you start focusing on the other things, especially since like during those 2 years, it really feels like you're double majoring in two music majors. It's really difficult. Um, so I only had to do those for 2 years, and I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't my favorite thing. But I think that's also because like I knew that I wasn't doing it for the rest of my life. Like I knew that that wasn't gonna be the thing that I wanted to do, um, which was I think the most difficult part about it. But my sophomore year, I got introduced to a program called the Chimers program, where we bring in a group of adults with mental disabilities, and they come in and play tone chimes to popular songs, and we put on a concert once a semester. And I became part of the pit that plays the music behind them, so it still sounds like the song, besides just the tone chimes. And that has been a whole lot of fun. I love doing that. I do it every semester since my first semester there. It's been it's been really great. And seeing the impact that I can make on them, and like they come in every week with this biggest smile on their face. We just had our first rehearsal for them last week, and like from what I heard from all their parents and everything, they were like, "When is Chimer starting? When is Chimer starting? When is Chimer starting? We want to know when Chimer is starting." Like they've been asking for it ever since the summer started. So it's been I love it, and I love seeing the difference that we make.
Sounds like super gratifying.
Oh yeah, I love it so much.
Is that a specific to Shenandoah, or is that like it sounded at first like maybe is it a national kind of?
No, it's just it. So it's done through a place called NW Works, that's here in Winchester. NW Works is a place where adults with mental disabilities can go, where they learn how to become members of society, and like they go out and get jobs at like retail places and things like that, where they start making their own money, and like they learn how to live on their own, and it's like it's really cool. I love it.
Awesome. Oh, very cool. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, um, so I have to do 6 semesters of symphony orchestra, and then I have to do 6 semesters of chamber orchestra. So when I do symphony, you also have the opportunity, if you want to try out to be in the pit for the opera, which I have not done yet because the rehearsals are just like late at night. I just don't have time right now, but I definitely think I'll do that probably when I have more free time as like a junior or a senior. And they also have a chamber orchestra, not like a chamber ensemble, which a lot of people who aren't music majors do. It's a little less intense and less strict. So I think I'll end up doing that on violin, usually. Yeah.
Go ahead. No, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No, you good.
Well, and you said I guess this is an ensemble, but is that part of why you're doing the Suzuki pedagogy kind of stuff to get the violin up for that ensemble?
Um, yeah, basically a lot of the violins right now are coming over into the viola section and they're playing a lot in our symphony
What?
because they want to learn viola.
They should. They
So
in case you other two haven't played around with viola much lately, you should.
I have a
so
5 string. I always play around on viola.
so they're encouraging us to also do violin, basically.
Well, and
So
my friend, I think I told you this when you were looking at JMU. My friend Greg, Gregory Childress, he graduated, I think, in 18 or 19 from JMU. And I think he ends up playing violin like the vast majority of his time. Now, if he's gigging, he says viola, but he has a violin and viola studio like me in Lynchburg. And his students are violin students because that's what's out there. I joke with him because I have like 6 or 7 violas right now. It's like ridiculous. And I'm like, right, like we should just trade, forget about the distance. But yeah, that's really cool, and it's nice that they have options for like that are a different demanding level. So cool. Emily?
Well, for my school under the performance degree, they my requirements are 8 semesters of a large ensemble and 4 of a small ensemble or like credits. So, um, for me, the small ensemble, well, the large ensemble is just our like university orchestra. We have one big orchestra. Um, and sometimes we're a string orchestra and sometimes we bring in winds for symphony orchestra, just kind of depending on the concert cycle. But my small ensembles have been like string quartets, or right now I'm working with a flute quartet. And also I've been able to do like cool stuff. Like I played in the musical pit last year and I'm doing that again this year. And then in the spring, our orchestra is actually the pit for the like university opera, which is really cool. Like it's not a separate thing, it's just the orchestra that already exists playing for it, which is cool. But I kind of feel like my coolest opportunities have been gigs that I've like picked up through connections here. Like definitely, I mean, not to say that my ensembles aren't cool, but like the coolest things have definitely been gigs. I one time traveled to Bloomsburg University to play with their strings and because they were accompanying an Elton John cover band. And it was like the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. And there were supposedly like thousands of people in the audience. It was so cool.
Yeah, that kind of stuff's like, I mean, Evelyn and I were just talking this morning about Paris, and I was like, yeah, well, Evelyn, mommy first went and sang at Notre Dame, and there was like however many thousands of people because it was Pentecost Sunday, and she was just like, okay, mom, I want to go to Paris. But, but it is kind of funny how it's like that was not my main ensemble. I was singing in a choir because I had to do something musical on that trip to make it qualify for college or whatever. I had a question. What shows have you guys done for musicals and stuff? That was my
Um, well, our school musical last year was, I don't know if you've heard of it, 110 in the Shade.
okay.
Um, I don't love the musical, but I love the music. It has a really good score. And I also picked up a gig doing The Addams Family once, which was awesome. And we're doing The Mystery of Edwin Drood starting in a couple weeks.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, you'll find these things come back. Like I don't know. I've done several shows many times. Guys and Dolls. I think I've done like 3 or 4 times now. And it does make it really easy then post like it doesn't feel like a big deal to accept a musical gig after you've done a few, and if you know what time period too, like Sondheim's worse, obviously that's a pain in the butt. But and Les Mis is essentially you're playing basically an opera, but it's a musical for like 3 hours. If you're in the pit, that's not fun, and you hurt afterwards. But it's good. It's just professional experience. So I'm glad you got to do that. It's really cool. Um, this is where I'll just kind of like toss into another student who was going to try to come today, and she's not here. Sydney, who's our most recent graduate. She's a freshman this year, and so she was looking for other performance opportunities that were more like kind of like that easier orchestra you were talking about, Anna, or like either on campus, like checking out what was on campus, but also in the community. And she says she's at WVU, and she just wanted to share that there's tons of ensembles and there's tons of different levels. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of research, but there is something depending on what your commitment level is, especially if you're at a bigger school like that. She said it was really easy to find. I think a smaller school, like, I guess, which is the smallest school here?
Probably me.
Will you? Susquehanna has how many in attendance? I looked there, but that was a long time ago.
Somewhere around the 2000 number.
Yeah, that sounds about right. The conservatory at Shenandoah is small, but the actual university is pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so for what that's worth, she just wanted to share that she was very concerned about it this summer, actually, because I was like, start doing your research now. If you don't want to lose it, because she's not majoring at all, she's doing science at the school, and she just was kind of like, I don't want to lose it, but also like I don't know what will fit in. But happy to report at least it was easy for her to find a few things to do, and I think there is something to be said for like finding community aspects too. Is that like maybe some of what's been most gratifying about like the outside gigs, Emily, that like you have connections that are not necessarily school related?
Yeah, I think that's something that like um I guess it's whenever I do it, I see it as a really cool opportunity to play music and also a cool opportunity to like be making connections with other musicians in the area and like getting my name and face around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and getting out there, and yeah, you don't know where those connections will go later on, because I've had several that is just like it's paid off. Someone randomly remembers me from whatever student teaching I did, or they like observed me one day because I just happened to be in a school teaching, and they're like, oh yeah, you should come back, or like you should do the guest conducting, or what have you. Kind of nice how that works out. So moving us right on along, as far as like that was the ensemble piece. I know adjusting to a new teacher for me was really tough. And it took me like, I'm on record as saying it took me like 5 or 6 weeks to feel like I had a successful lesson in college. What was that like for you guys? I know there's a lot of laughs, aren't there? So I like, be honest. It's okay. I'm honest about what it was like for me. And I still have a perfectly good working relationship with all my teachers too, I should add. Like it's, there's no bad blood or anything. Anna, do you want to pick that up? So you're the newest, I guess, to like getting a new teacher, probably.
Yeah. I would say that it definitely took me a couple lessons to feel comfortable, but maybe that's just because I'm shy. Um, I felt like the hardest part kind of after I auditioned and she was like, I love you, I want you to come, was figuring out her expectations for me. Like in the long run, because people have gotten kicked out of the studio, so and like dropped from the major. So I think that was a lot of the lesson that I do, the way I don't know, my lessons kind of work is like if she like wants you to do Mazas etudes or something, she'll kind of be like, okay, so let's do Mazas this week. And she won't necessarily give you an exercise or like show you how to play it. You have to do that on your own outside of your lesson, and then come in the next week and she'll be like, what did you do in practice this week? And it's like, okay, I picked this Mazas etude because I felt like I needed to work on my bow stroke. Like, this is what I have, and I have it at this tempo. And then she'll listen to it, stuff like that. But as far as like giving like specific assignments, there's not a lot of it is just a lot of independent practice. And then I come into my lesson and I play for her what I've been doing, and she'll tell me how she feels about it and give me tips like that. So it's kind of been hard in that way because I kind of have to figure out what I'm doing wrong and how I can fix it. And she'll like lead you in the right direction and let you know if she feels like what you're doing is working or what you're doing is not working, and like what she thinks you should do. Um, but yeah, I think the hardest part has been figuring out how hard, like how much I need to practice and what I need to be doing, because it's not really specific in that way.
It sounds very open-ended to me, the way she likes to run things. Would
Yeah.
you consider interesting? Would she be open, like if you were to come into a lesson and say, I worked on all these things, like I haven't just sat on my hands all week, but what do you think needs work? Like, has she been open to questions like that?
Yeah, I mean, she has been like on like she's like, I think you need to work on your tone and I think you need to work on your intonation and stuff like that. But as far as like assignments and stuff, like if I got like I just got a Bach prelude that she wants me to play for our master class, and I have to play it on Friday. My lesson is on Wednesday. She gave it to me 2 weeks ago, and she hasn't heard it, but she's gonna hear it on Wednesday and tell me if she thinks I can play it on Friday for the master class.
No pressure. Cool. Okay. That made me think of another question that I'm going to write down, but who would like to go next? And the question was, because we kind of like a little went off the beaten path, like adjustment to private lessons, adjusting to a new teacher in college.
I can go. So, I'm gonna be honest, I think in my 4 semesters of private lessons, I feel like I had like 3 good lessons in there ever. And like that's not a slight on the violin teacher. I love her. She's a great violin teacher. Um, we never quite saw eye to eye on what was important to me and to her, because she would oftentimes be like, okay, now do this piece and do this piece and do this piece, and I'm sitting here like, yeah, but how am I going to use that clinically? Like, how am I going to use that for my major? And I would bring this up to her, and she'd be like, well, you need to teach me how to do that. And I'm like, I'm a freshman. I don't know yet. Like that's why I need your help. Um, but it was a lot, because she treated us like we were violin majors when we were violin minors. Um, and so it really felt like we were double majoring, and like she wanted us to have all of our focus on violin when we were learning percussion, piano, voice, and guitar all at the same time on top of that. All four of those are things that we're going to need in our degree rather than violin. And so it was just kind of like, it was a jarring experience going between the two.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the music therapy degree is still like in its infancy. Are you the first graduating class?
No.
Oh,
Um,
the author.
it's it's been going on for a while. Like, I think at Shenandoah, actually no. Next year will be 50 years at Shenandoah.
For therapy? For music
Yeah.
therapy?
Hmm.
Okay. Then I maybe I'm thinking of a different school for all I know. Um,
But it's not very often that there are music therapy majors who are violinists. And so, like, because of that weird niche overlap, she was like, I don't know, and just kind of treated us like we were majors. And I say us because there was another uh, violin music therapy major who's in my cohort, and we were just like, this has nothing to do with what we're trying to do in life. Like, what are we doing here? This feels almost like a waste of time.
I hear that. I hear that. Because I had 3 college professors, 3 private teachers in college. I think all of them handled the ed requirements on me differently. Because it was like I had to take percussion tech, I had to take string tech, I had to take string tech too, which was like, okay, sure. Um, woodwind tech two, brass, whatever. And some of them were way more okay. Like when we were required to do marching band. You want to talk about a waste in your degree? I saw like I am orchestral strings. Hello, like I will not do anything with marching band. And yet it was at least that year I was probably with my most relaxed teacher. So they just kind of were like, well, do what you can. Whereas like I think my other two professors would have just been like, well, figure it out. And oh, you got sleep last night? Well, I guess that better be the thing that goes. Like, because I think just different personalities handle those kind of differentiations and degrees very differently, if that makes sense. Um, yeah. Well, violinist, and it'll pay off later someday, I'm sure. Like this is it. This is why I was there. Emily.
Um, it I don't think adjusting to a new teacher was easy at all, but I don't think it's impossible because my my lessons, I have 8 semesters of lessons, so I'm still doing lessons and I'll be doing lessons next semester too. Um, and my lessons, I, for a long time, they were pretty rough. But I mean, I am at the point now where I'm like coming home every week and going, I just had such a good lesson. I just had a great lesson. I feel like I'm making so much progress. Um, I think that my biggest thing and my biggest problem going into lessons was the idea that it's like it really takes effort from both sides to be like nurturing a good student-teacher relationship. And I think I was, my early college years, I was kind of in this state of like, well, I learned the music, and at my next lesson, I can play it just fine, regardless of how much time I've spent working on it from one week to the next. Um, and my teacher, she can tell, you know, like I'm going in unpracticed, and she can see that, and she sees that I'm doing just fine. And a lot of that like came down to the frustration of like, I know that you're doing it, and like I know that you're a good player, but if you would practice, then we could just keep getting better. Um, and I know there's a question about practice time, but that was like my biggest thing, like really figuring out lessons was like making sure that I'm getting my time in the practice room and like working on what I need to work on.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious. This is purely for my own desire to be better. Since I didn't have Anna, I didn't have you finish with through at the end of high school. You're with Heather, so you may be able to speak to this, you might not. But you other two, you're mine the whole way. So, what as a teacher on my side, what would have helped you, or what could I have done to help you more with that transition? I know, and I sprung this. This is not on the list of questions that I provided at all. If you want to think about it, let me know later. But like, I think that's again, the whole point is having you guys here. But my college experience, going from my high school teacher to my college professor. The one thing too is like it's ironic. My very first teacher in college was probably my strictest, and so I only had him a year because I transferred. But it was jarring to steal your word, and his level of attention to detail and also not hand holding. It was like my teacher gave me a practice sheet every week. Of course, she gave me a practice, like the notes. I do the thing on the paper? Yes. Okay, I'm like golden, and that structure wasn't there anymore. So for me, I created my own practice sheet as the student. I would leave lessons and then I would make my practice sheet, because he wasn't going to do it for me, which is fine, and I think that's part of growth. But yeah, if you have thoughts, if you're like, I'll think on that and let you know later, that's fine too. I just was curious.
I think for us, it was like I the transition ended up being really hard circumstantially because I mean we were like the COVID year. We ended lessons on Zoom and like I don't know, not to like out myself, but it's not like I was practicing over COVID. You know, it's not like I like why is my screen getting dark? Anyways, but I mean, and then you go into freshman year, and I had a double major. Music wasn't like my main thing at that time. So it kind of took me a long time to actually get into the routine of like practicing and like caring about music the way that I do now.
Mhm. Well, and you know, whether this will make you feel better or not, we were in that holding pattern about like you had been practicing because we had the recital, and then the recital just
It's
evaporated.
gone, yeah.
So it was like we didn't have a lot of direction, right? And
Right.
especially because we had 2 months. You wrapped up. Actually, you both wrapped up like when I went on maternity leave. So there was no manufactured like there's this performance thing that we're working towards, which I think as musicians, just in general, like that's really important. The sharing component is this is a larger philosophical thing for me, but if we don't have that extra pressure, and if we also not even pressure, it's just like if we don't think we're sharing it with people, then what are we doing, right? Um, so don't be too hard on yourself. It was a COVID. I would just, but
I guess I almost wish I had like been maybe like in hindsight, I kind of wish I'd been left like halfway through a piece so that I could like I don't know. I know now that's kind of what I would want is to be like working on a piece when I leave so I can like keep working on it and like bring it to a new teacher or something.
that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I like that.
I don't know if I would have worked well with that then, but I think that I would work well with that now.
Well, that's the secret, right? That's always the secret too. Is you're never really finished a piece, are you? You just like you review it and you come back to it and you play it better. 4 years later compared to what you did the first time, the first pass through. Um, but that's a fair point too. Um, that's interesting. I'll think on that. Thank you. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I did. Hang on, it'll come back. Oh, I remember you telling me when I was looking at colleges and everything, you said that I should do like a I forget exactly what it was called, like a mock lesson or something with the trial lesson, that's it. With the professor. And I think that's a really great idea. But then I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but I like didn't have any questions prepared at all for like afterward of like okay, like how do you structure this? What do you do in this situation? Do you like how do you assign assignments? What like I didn't have any of those questions. I think those type of questions are really gonna help because one, they love answering questions. And two, like if you know how things are going to work later, if that's the school you end up at, one, it helps you decide if that's the school you want to go to. And two, if it is, we can then come back to you and be like, hey, so my professor is going to be like this. Can you like slowly transition into this? That way I'm prepared for when I go.
Yeah, that's actually Emily Lair when she did her trial lessons at WVU. That was something I remember her doing. She went to her lesson and she came back and she said, so apparently this is how they do scales there. Can we start trying to do that? And we had started doing some of the warm-ups and things the way that apparently the violin studio was doing them there. I don't know why I forgot about that. I forgot to ask about that, but that's a really good idea. And that goes to my point. Anna and I were talking earlier this week about like even summer programs and like to me even the private lesson, like that student teacher relationship, and both sides have to kind of work on it and be willing to be present and be engaged and be invested in what the work that you're trying to do together, right? Always knowing what faculty you'll actually be working with, I think, is really important because, again, in Emily's experience at WVU, she had her trial lesson with Dr. Mateer, but then she didn't actually study with Dr. Mateer. She got graduate assistance because she was a music therapy major. And so just like being really, really clear about like, sure, all of the GAs were doing essentially what Dr. Mateer, like they were trying to mimic her structure, but there's still differences in individuals, right? So when you're just like any program, whether it's like a short-term summer program or a 4-year degree, I think that can make or break a relationship, and that is maybe what kind of some of the tension that you were saying you had, like, is like you guys never really did kind of have a settling of or a meeting of the minds that this is what our unified goal is, right? So that's a perspective. Oh gosh, I don't even know. We could talk about practice time, but there was one like follow-up question with studios was, are there any like, were there studio classes, organized studio classes where all the major instruments got together, or it sounds like everyone's saying yes. Thumbs up if you like them, thumbs in the middle if they're okay. I don't know, like fair enough. Any highlights from those classes or what to expect from those classes, because they're different than group classes. I mean, since you guys have graduated, actually, and I have my bigger, home studio space, we have been having monthly group classes, which has been, to me, just amazing and so fun. And I wish we could have had something more consistent for you guys, because we were kind of just like, this church will let us use their parking lot or whatever, or their pavilion, not their parking lot, but their yard. It's definitely been more structured here, but even my, Suzuki group class is different than a college studio class. So if anyone has any thoughts about like the structure that you guys have experienced or what those are like, I think that is really unique and would be worth sharing.
I can go. So in my program, within our violin studio, we have like weekly studio classes, so everybody that takes lessons goes to that. Um, and those are like majors and non-majors. And then within the music department, we have like what we call forum. So like 7 weeks, the majors will split into different groups and kind of just like play for each other and give feedback, which is like the same structure as studio class. We all just show up and play something. It doesn't have to be like perfect. It doesn't have to be performance ready, and like get comments and feedback from your peers. And I personally, well, our studio class is at 8 in the morning, and our um our solo class is, or like forum, is 0 credits, but we still have like 6 required semesters of it, or maybe 8. I think I have 8. Anyways, I regardless of those things, I really like both of these like classes just because I think they're really great opportunities to like be getting in performance time. Like you don't always have opportunities to just play in front of a crowd, even if it's a small crowd. So I think I take those opportunities very seriously, and I play for both every week.
Yeah, good. Anyone else?
Oh. My studio is basically, I guess it's like if you take lessons, that's 3 credits. And if you take a lesson, then you have to go to studio. So it's basically everyone, because every music major has to take a lesson. So we have studio. I feel like if you don't have a good studio, it makes your experience way less enjoyable. And I know at my school, at least, if you are auditioning, They invite you to sit in on a symphony rehearsal, and they invite you to sit in studio and meet everyone, because some studios are way more competitive than other studios, and that like the people that you're sitting in your section with, you kind of want to be friends with them because you're spending a lot of time together. But our studio, um, I would say at least for violas, a lot of the times, like some weeks she'll spend it and we focus a lot on viola specific repertoire and techniques and stuff that is only for your instrument. And then a lot of the weeks it's basically playing for your class. And if you play for your class, it's pretty serious. You have to have like a finished piece, bring in piano, and play for the class. So when I get asked, it's like it's really serious.
Yeah. Cool. So, in the interest of making sure we like get to all the questions, we addressed practice time a little bit. Is that Emily, or does anyone have any thoughts about practice time?
My my philosophy for practice time, especially, I mean, like we're music majors, we tend to be like busy people. My philosophy, the only thing that works for me is to like block it out on my schedule. Like every Monday, this is my practice time. Every Tuesday, my practice time is here. Um, and like I don't know, there's a different time that works for everyone. Afternoon works great for me. Some people practice better in the morning, some people practice better at night. And also like you were talking about making like practice sheets, just like planning what you're gonna practice, writing things down. I keep a journal, and it's just good to like keep things organized so that you're not like forgetting about pieces, so you don't go into your lesson you're like, I forgot I had a scale this week.
You always have a scale. It doesn't whether there's one assigned or not. Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I think practice time and blocking it out, because otherwise if you don't, it's not going to happen, right? Like,
Yeah. There's no like, oh, maybe I'll practice later. Mm-mm. I won't practice later. If I don't hit my practice time, I will not practice later.
well, I'll say this. Sometimes if I practice in the morning and there's like this like thing that I was like, oh, I was so close, but I didn't like get it done, or like I just feel like if I had like another like 5 or 10 minutes, like I could have locked something in. Sometimes I will go back later, but only like you know, but that's just me. That's my experience.
I must be very different because that's like I find myself like especially this semester with the way my schedule is like I end up having like class and then like an hour break and then class hour break class like I'm just going all day with like an hour break every so often. And so, like, if those hour breaks happen when I shouldn't be eating a meal, because that rarely happens, but not the eating the meal, that always happens, but I just mean where it's not an hour where I should be eating a meal. Um, then that's where I'm like, okay, I'm going to go practice because I have nothing else to do right now for this hour, and an hour is not enough to go back to my room and do nothing. So I'm just gonna go practice now until my next class. And I've done that every semester of like, okay, I have this little bit of time here between classes where it's not long enough for me to do homework or go back to my room or anything. I'm gonna practice.
At my school, we all have to have like little practice journals that we write stuff in. It doesn't matter what you write, you just have to have one. Um, they encourage us to definitely record your lessons so you can watch them back. Um, I know what's like encouraged, but they encourage basically is if you are a music major, like music ed or something, they encourage 2 hours a day, so 14 a week. And if you don't, it's like if like one day you only do 1 hour, then you should make it up on like Saturday or Sunday and then maybe do 3 hours that day. So you hit 14 a week. If you're in performance, they encourage 3 hours a day. And um, if you're not making it and they feel like you're not, there's like a tuner app that times your practice. So sometimes like your teacher might ask to see your logs and see how much you've been practicing. So I definitely have to make it like a priority in my schedule, which can definitely be hard. I feel like there's a lot of pressure to practice, but sometimes if it's late at night and there's like a point where it's like it's too late for me to get anything like productive done, I'm just like in the practice, like I'm not learning anything. Um, that I should definitely just like go home and sleep. Like sleep and eating really help. And if you're not doing that, it affects your performance like more than you think. Like that can be way more helpful to you rather than practicing your scale. Sometimes you just need to eat to make the scale work.
I mean, we're not machines, certainly. And I just kind of like Owen actually was asking too, like how much practice is recommended. So that's perfect for majors and non-majors, and that's about what it was when I was in school too. We were expected to be doing about 2 hours a day, and then the performance majors were 3 plus. They kind of left the door open if they wanted to do more. Um, that is, I mean, whatever. But he wanted to know how much you actually do. So he was kind of asking y'all to rat yourselves out, maybe. And Owen is a freshman in high school, and he's a violist who has a very full schedule. So I think I can see where he had this question or why he has this question. Were your recommendations different at Shenandoah or Susquehanna?
I think it's about the same. Um, I remember maybe a year or two ago, my teacher asked me to be doing like 2 hours a day, but I don't know if I was a performance major at that point or if I was just doing the music degree itself.
Mine was different, but I think that's because like by my like fifth or sixth week, I was very upfront with my professor and was like, yeah, I can't do 2 hours a day. Like it's just not happening with my schedule. Like I can't do it. Especially since I was learning a whole bunch of other instruments at that point and everything. Um, so it definitely became, for violin at least, it became a lot more of a when I have the chance, I will do it. But the other instruments that I was learning at that time, that was like I spent at least an hour a day on each instrument that I was doing. Um, so yeah,
This is kind of like you're doing catch up a little bit on some of those.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
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 I'm expected to be proficient in, by that point, guitar, piano, and voice. And I'm like, well, I have not done any of those three, so here we go.
That piano proficiency, it stuck a lot of friends in college. Like, luckily, I did piano and violin. I auditioned on both for college. So piano proficiency was like whatever, that's fine. I played that music in middle school. We're good. But it can, I mean, that can stick you a little bit. To go back, so this is another studio submitted question. Shaylee, who I guess it's just violas who are asking questions. That's great. Shaylee wanted to know what music you did to prepare for college, either, and she was thinking like music opportunities, what things you participated in, and as well as I think she wanted to know audition pieces, perhaps if you remember what your audition pieces were, and then if she as like a follow-up question, what do you wish you had done? So like maybe if there were opportunities that you're kind of like, I don't know, sounds nice, but maybe I don't really need to do it. And then in hindsight, you were like, oh, if I had taken this opportunity in high school, it'd be paying off for me now. Um, yeah.
I feel like I have so many words just because of my experience of not being burned, but that's the only word that's coming up in my mind right now. Like being burned with my experience in violin because like it wasn't what I was planning on doing for the rest of my life, but everyone around me was like, you should be doing this for the rest of your life. But I would say like for me, I wish I would have found more pieces that were more my personality style. Like it's still fitting within the requirements, but like fitting my personality more. Um, because like I remember I did the third movement of the Bach A minor
Hmm.
and the was it Haydn G major?
Probably. Yeah.
And I by the end I loved them both. But it was especially since like I was going into music therapy, like I ended up using Millionaire's Hoedown. Do you remember that one?
Mhm. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I ended up using that a whole lot more than either one of those two.
That's fair. I think that's um you're right. If you haven't looked at some of Chrysler's collections, he has some really nice folk song arrangements and transcriptions
Yeah.
in that vein. But and maybe you've done that already at this point. But
And even um I forget who it's by now. I think it is Chrysler. But the melody,
the one that he takes from Gluck, the
yes, yes.
yeah, that's a transcription. So that's a well, I guess I was just saying his transcriptions. But yeah, that's beautiful. It's a really nice piece.
I've used those two in music therapy. And like I almost wish that I had auditioned on those rather than what I did audition with. Just because like it fit music therapy more and it fit my vibe more. Like I'm I feel like I'm especially now that I'm in college, like I feel like either like a okay, let's like take a moment and calm down and like listen to this beautiful piece or like all right, let's hoe down, let's get it, let's go, like let's have fun. And like I don't know, it just I feel like they fit me more and I feel like it fits my major more. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, I'll go. Um, I auditioned with Hofmeister Concerto, a Stamitz Concerto, and then Bach Suite 2. Um, I would say that you should definitely pick pieces that you like to play in the genre that you like to play, because I feel like I really like classical music. And something that I didn't really know is that my teacher is really, really into modern music. And so she's always like asking me to do this like modern repertoire that I really don't want to do. So I would say like you should definitely pick pieces that you want to do and also ask your teacher, listen to them and what they play and see if like you also like the same stuff. I did the Shepherd Community Orchestra, which looked really good on my like they really liked that I did that. I wish that I had done more stuff like that, like the Potomac Valley Youth Orchestra and stuff like that, just to get more experience playing under a different conductor, because I think I was so used to Holland at BISFA that when I switched over to a new conductor, it was harder. But I was happy that I had played under like Camillo before and I was used to just different conductors because that can also kind of be hard to transition. So yeah, I wish I'd played more in like other types of settings before I came to school.
And I'll just you both, Anna and Emily, you guys are from Washington County, so you both did all county
Yeah.
with Elizabeth Schultz as well for the Maryland Symphony. Um, did Mitchell Arnold do one of those years too? I think maybe, or was it always Elizabeth for you guys?
I only worked with Elizabeth.
I only had Elizabeth, yeah.
I know sometimes if because she's a busy lady, so sometimes she's not available, and they usually when she's not available, they'd called Mitchell Arnold, but I think it has been a while since he's been back. Um, yeah, that's really and just for context, that PBYO orchestra, the Potomac Valley that you're talking about, that's like an hour and a half away, hour 15 away. Which sounds like a lot, and I get that. There's a fiddle group that I would love to participate in, actually closer for you, Blake. You might do this. We'll talk later.
Okay.
In Cape and Bridge, but it's an hour and 15, only like one way for me on a Thursday night. And in the stage of life that I'm in currently with a young child, teaching every night. If I want to make some bedtimes, I can't be going to Cape and Bridge every week or every other week for Irish fiddle, right? But I think, yeah, that's sometimes you have to travel, right, for these things, and that's just the way it is. So sometimes it comes down to a matter of like, how much do you want it? You know? Do you have anything to add, Emily?
Well, the ensembles I did, like Anna said, I did Shepherd, which I thought was a really great opportunity. I just think it's good, like at some point before you go to college to work with like a symphonic orchestra. And I did summer camps. I did the Shepherd summer camp and I did the like North Carolina Greensboro summer camp, which was really cool. It was a really big orchestra. And I wrote these down. My audition pieces were the Prelude and Allegro and the Sarabande from Bach D minor. And I guess like I think the first time I read this question, I misinterpreted it, but it's still worth saying. The things that I wish I had done more of, like before going to college, were I guess like doing a little bit of theory because I feel like I didn't know any theory when I went into college.
About some theory. But okay, no.
The circle of fifths. Um, and also I just kind of wish that I'd been like memorizing more things because that's like been a really difficult skill for me to build back up. And I think I'm pretty good at memory right now. But some things are hard to memorize. Like I'm memorizing Bach and it's so hard.
Well, and it's absolutely, and so this is kind of goes back to the whole one of the developments since the three of you have been gone with the group classes too. We're doing a lot more review now, and everyone is like, I have to memorize this? You mean like I still have to know this song? I'm like, yeah, hello. Like, it's not that like I haven't like it's fine. I don't like memorizing either, but I figured it out. We'll talk about how to do it. But man, I've had a lot of resistance to the memorization component. And
It's important. I have to memorize everything.
that clip, and I'm gonna be like, hey guys, this is what Emily said. Be like don't be like Emily, but be like Emily. Be like Emily in that she values memorization. And
Every
be a better teacher so that they don't have that in college. It's hard. Bach is hard to memorize. I am grateful.
Is Bach and Telemon.
As a music ed major, I was able to avoid a lot of that. I did not have to do really any memorized. There was brief talk of me having to memorize my partita for my senior recital, and I was like, no, no, what you? And they relented because I freaked out so much about it. But yeah, and Marianne Gooding actually was like, well, of course you have to memorize your Bach, and I was like, but do I really? Anyway, so
I have to memorize 10 new songs every semester, 5 on guitar and 5 on piano.
mhm.
Um, and I have to sing those songs, and they aren't like classical songs, like they're pop songs and stuff. So like the melody and everything gets repeated, and so I think the hardest part for me is remembering which lines go to which verse. So I'm like, you guys couldn't have varied it a little bit so I can remember easier? No, they have to be the exact same. Okay, cool, great. I'm just gonna sit here and cry for a little bit and then figure it out.
And that's what me singing lullabies to my daughter is like sometimes. Anyway, I think this is a really good question to leave off. Before we get to that, like, just thank you again. I really appreciate you guys giving an hour of your time, a little more than that even. And I know a lot of my students have been wondering, and I think my parents. I was the first one to go to college for music. I think it's hard to know, right, what the expectation is and what it really is like. And so I think the parents in my studio will really benefit hearing from you guys too, because they just don't know, right? But the last question was just kind of like, how what has your relationship to music been like since getting to college, or and like how has it changed? How is it the same? Um, yeah, and I know that's been a journey for each of you. So whoever wants to go first, I guess.
I have so many words. So many words. I yeah, I'll go since I'm already talking. I remember my freshman year being really excited about being a music major. And then that quickly went away when I got very busy with everything else going on, like because the music therapy classes took up so much time, and rightfully so, that like violin kind of started feeling like an afterthought, um at least for me, because it wasn't as high up on the list for me. Like music therapy was my top priority, and then violin was like at my bottom because I knew I wasn't using it for my major. um Whereas my violin professor was treating me like I was a violin major, and it was like that juxtaposition was really difficult to kind of navigate. Um, so I ended up like hating music for a little bit and hating the violin for a little bit. And I still kind of hate the violin, but I'm getting better about it. I don't hate it any as much anymore. I'm playing it this semester, which I have a love-hate relationship with again, but um, I just yeah, it was really difficult my freshman and even my sophomore year with music. But then last year, once I didn't have to do violin as much, I did it like once a week for an hour, um, for the first semester, and then the second semester I didn't even touch it. Um, it made it a lot easier, and especially since I was like the music that I was learning at that point was a lot more related to what I was going to do with my life. Like we were learning pop songs on guitar and country songs on piano and rock songs on guitar, which was a lot of fun. Um, and like I was doing things that were actually going to matter later in my life, and so it felt more fulfilling. um, with that being said, I have found that movies and podcasts have become my new background noise and not music, because my day is filled with so much music that when I get back I'm like, nope, I'm not doing music anymore. And so I'll turn on a podcast or a movie or anything that isn't music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went through very. I mean, I don't. I have to actively remind myself to listen to music, but I am intentional about what I choose, even still. And I graduated 10 years ago. Um, it comes in waves. That's all I'm gonna say. And fiddle was my way back. Fiddle was definitely like my preparing for my senior recital. I think all three of you have heard me say like fiddle was my trick to myself to get my violin out to practice more. So I had like got all these fiddle books, and I was like, I just want to like play some fiddle music just for fun, because I was mega burned out as well. And but it was kind of like, oh well, the violin's unpacked now. I guess I can bother to practice my Bach. I guess I can do that. I was all dramatic about it in my head. But I think we all have our little like tricks and things that we need to do to find the way that it makes it worthwhile. So I hear a lot of that. Who else?
I think that my relationship with music has gotten a lot stronger. I think before I went into college, especially, like I had decided that I was going to be a science major because I didn't want music to start feeling like a job. Like I knew that I was always so worried that like if I just did music, I that would happen, that it would like strain my relationship with music. But I kind of found that for me, like being so deeply involved with music, like in every aspect, like the theory, the history, and the performance and everything, like it makes it a lot more meaningful. And I think like I don't know, it's like really strengthened my relationship with music in like a way that I didn't really expect.
Very cool.
Um, I would say that before I went to college, I definitely wanted to do music performance. I felt like I would not be happy if I just did like something like music on the side, because I felt like if I just did music on the side, I would never do music again. Um, but I feel like now that I'm in college, I definitely have a way deeper appreciation for music, but also like performers and a deeper appreciation for musicians because it's a lot of work and there's like a lot that goes into it, even beyond like just practicing for 2 hours a day, because there's like a lot of listening that you need to do. And like theory is hard and keyboard is hard and oral skills is hard. But I feel like yeah, I have like
Oh.
deeper appreciation for it. And sometimes it can get hard to remember how much I really love doing music, especially when I'm not like specifically sitting in symphony, which is like my favorite class, because like especially like when you live in a dorm and you live with other people that aren't music majors and they have like 4 classes and they have like weekends free and they have all this free time and like this all this stuff and it's like I can't like I have to go practice. I come home really late, I leave really early and it's like tiring and it's just like it can get really hard. And so I would just like remind myself of the things that I really love about listening to music, the things that I love about playing music, and really focus on those and remember that everything that I'm doing is so that I can do what I want to do. And so, yeah.
It's really well phrased. So that's really wise. A wise way to look at it, I think. Um, I definitely, I ended up at Shepherd and graduated Shepherd, and Shepherd is definitely, I would say, a party school. And even some of the other music majors, they were just not. It was not the same, and they didn't take it seriously or as seriously as I did. But I think that shows too, because some of the ones who were majors then, they're not doing music and they're not making a living doing something with music in the way that they want to. And I mean, you three know I'm really grateful to do what I do and to be able to support my family this way. And I just hope that you guys find a way that like, and whatever twist that looks like for you, that you'll figure it out. Um, yeah, that's a really great way to end, I guess, for everyone else. So for those watching the replay, thank you so much. I didn't clear this with you guys, but I guess if you have any questions about your individual colleges, you would probably be willing to at least give more specific feedback about your schools, right? So we have Shenandoah, Susquehanna, JMU here. And yeah, thank you for watching. I'll end the recording now. Maybe.